Hello and welcome back to our session. So today we are going to talk about continuing on error and data errors. So this is a really good topic. We did have a lot of questions about this, how this works, and how companies can use it on their integration. So let's dive into the agenda. So first, just a very short introduction, why this matters, and then I will talk a bit about continue on error, what this is, and how you need to enable it. Then we will go through a bit more into detail on the data errors section. So the page itself and then the actions you can take. And then I will show you within Rapidi where you need to go and what you need to do. Then we have questions. Obviously, if you have any questions or maybe something does not make sense, just use the chat and add your questions there. And then I will show you which are the next sessions that we have on the website. And of course, last but not least, the resources. So let's go to our introduction. So when we talk about continue on error and data errors, we do have to mention that this is something that's valuable to certain companies. And the reason is that when you have your integration running, then you might want to skip those bad records, right? Maybe you have this situation once in a while, and you don't want everything to be stopped, because of that. So when you use this functionality, Rapidi will skip those bad records and will allow you to continue to run everything else. So this is something that's good for those that really need it. But of course, here you do have to think about the data errors themselves, make sure that you check them and that you take action, because you will still have data errors, but they will be stored in a separate place. And then you do need to go through them and see what the issue was. So there's still some kind of responsibility, attached to it. So they do not disappear. They don't go away. You just have to make sure that you do review them and then you do something about them. Now, when we talk about continue on error, so you enable this on a transfer or on multiple transfers. So this means that Rapidi will not stop the entire run when one record fails, right? So then if you have things that are running in a sequence, then Rapidi will allow everything else to run and will skip those bad records. And then, of course, every error message will be logged, and then you should be able to see that on your Rapidi service. Of course, the question is when to use it. So this is ideal for those situations where you have like large data sets. So you might have this occasional bad records, right? And you don't really want to stop everything because of those. So, this would be like the most, ideal scenario. But of course, this should not be used at any time on everything, right? Because if you have systematic errors, like you see records, bad records, bad data, coming in, then continue on error will not solve the root cause of it, right? Because you also have to look at how many you get, how many data errors do we see in Rapidi. If you get occasional data errors, then that's fine, because you can actually have control over that and then you can fix those records. But then if you have large amounts of data errors, then that's definitely an issue, and that issue is somewhere else, right? So it's either in the source or destination, or somewhere. So those need to be taken care of before enabling continue on error. And of course, for you to enable that, you simply have to go to your transfer. You have there the general section, and then you just click on continue on error, and then you save it. So then as soon as you do that, then your transfer will run. And then if there are any bad records, they will be skipped, and then you should see them under a separate section. So that's pretty straightforward, I would say, and easy. Now, of course, we have the data errors page, which is a separate page that you will see when you log into your service. So then this page is under logs, right? But it's like a separate subsection, and it's called data errors. There you would see all the data errors, right? And the ones that are associated with transfers where continue on error has been enabled. So when you go in there, you should be able to see all the entries, and then you would see which one failed when, between which systems, and why. Of course, you can set up filters. So you can go ahead and filter on specific things. So you can filter on a specific time window. So for example, I want to see what happened, this week. So then you can set filters and then you get a view of that. Then you can also filter by transfer. Maybe you want to see specific errors that are linked to a specific transfer. Then you can also filter on source or destination connections. That's also easy. This will narrow down everything that you have in there. Then you also have the possibility to filter by the error status. So you can filter by resolved or unresolved, right? So that this would also give you a good overview. And then you have a free search, which of course you can just type in keywords to find anything within the error description. So you do have a few options here, so you can filter and then find what you actually need in there. Then, of course, here on the same page, you can do a lot of things. So if you have any entries under data errors, then you are using this continue on error functionality, and then you should be able to do something about them, right? So this is the most important part of it. So you can make changes there, and then those changes would apply to single entries, or like you can have bulk actions that you can perform. For example, if you just want to go through each entry one by one, then you have the comment icon. This is something that can be used. You can add a note or something that has to do with that error. You can mark that entry as resolved. You can go in, select it, and you mark it as resolved, and then you will not be able to see it listed under errors. And then, of course, you can also delete that if you don't need it. If you say, okay, this has been resolved, I really don't want to see it here anymore, you can delete that. Then on every data error entry, you would have the transfer link. So next to that, you can click on the link, on the transfer link, and then it will redirect you to the transfer that this error is linked to. You can expand or collapse the full error message, so you can see exactly what the issue was, so then you can do something about that. And then another thing that you can do, you can export a JSON. So basically it would export that specific data error entry in case you need it. Then when it comes to bulk actions, here you can use change resolve, right? So here what you do, you mark, let's say, all entries, and you want to set them as resolved. That's something that you can do here. So you don't have to do them one by one in case you have too many in there. Then you can use change all fixed. So for example, if you have a lot of entries in there, then you can mark them as fixed, and then that's going to apply to all of them, right? And then you can also export JSON. So if you want to build a report on it, or maybe have some sort of information, then you can do that, and you'll have a full JSON with all the data errors and the transfers. And then you can do delete all selected. It means that it will delete the ones that you have selected, right? So then if you want to delete 100 entries, you select them, and then they will be deleted and gone forever, I would say. And then last but not least would be delete all. So this one would just wipe the entire error log. So if you have hundreds of entries, all of them will be deleted. So then it will be like a full mass delete, and then you will not see any entries there anymore. So you do have actions that you can take, and then you can do it just for every entry or for all of them if necessary. Now, let's take a look at MyRapidi and how this actually is set up. Okay, so for example, in my case, I have this schedule that's running, right? So then part of the schedule, you would usually have transfers. So then if I go to my transfer here and I expand the general section, I should be able to see this. So I have enabled continue on error because I don't want to get any error messages within the logs, right? And as soon as I've done that, then any possible errors will be saved separately. So they will not show up in here. Now, let's go back to the schedule. Now, when you are using continue on error, on, let's say, transfers, which are part of a schedule, you will always see the status here green, right? Because the data errors will not be logged here, right? They will show up in a different place. So the schedule will always run completely, no matter how many bad records you have. So then when you have possible data errors, then the best place to do that is to go to data errors, not the actual logs here that the schedule would show you. Now, speaking of data errors, so then if we go to logs here, you'll see you have the usual logs, right? So this would be the schedule running and transferring data. And then you have the data errors, right? So this one here would save all my data errors. And as I mentioned before, when you have data errors, you have to do something with them. So then if they are resolved, then you can simply mark them as resolved or simply delete them, right? Because then if you usually get a lot of data errors, then this will become a very long list. So and then maybe, it will be difficult to maintain it and actually see what to do about that. And of course, here under data errors, you have different options. You can set up here filters on date, right? So you can look at specific dates. You can say this week, and then this will show you the data errors that are relevant for that specific time. Here, where you see this double arrows, this would be the transfers that you want to filter on. So then when you want to filter on a specific transfer, you would go here and then you would pick it from the list, and then the data errors list will be updated and show only those specific transfers. The next filter you have here, you have source connection, and then the one next to it would be destination connection. So you can also filter on your source system and then on your destination system. And then here you have the status that I mentioned. So here you would have not resolved. This would be the default value when you go to data errors. But then if you want to remove it, you can simply remove it, and then you would see all of them, right? So you would see resolved and unresolved. And then the last part would be the search bar here, where you can add keywords and search for specific information. So here at top, you do have a lot of filters that you can set up. So then you can take a look at, only the ones that matter. If you want to see a specific day, if you want to see specific transfers, so you can troubleshoot, then you can use the filters, and then you should see only what's important. And then the second part of it here, then you have the option to mark certain entries as result, right? So if I take this one here, I'll say resolved and then change result, right? So you see now it's not showing as, this error icon, it's showing this green check mark. So then you can do that for one or multiple entries. Here you can export the JSON for that specific entry that you selected. So you can select one or more or all of them, right? And then here you have delete all selected. So you can select multiple, you can say, and then you click on this one and you say delete all selected, right? So do that. So they got deleted. So then you can definitely do that with specific entries. Change all fixed. So this would apply to all of them. So then it will say that all data errors will be set to resolved, right? And then you will not see anything with this red icon. And then last but not least would be delete all. So then if you have done everything with regards to these errors, then you just want to delete them, you can do that. You click on this one, and then all the entries will be deleted, and then data errors will become blank. So you will not have any entries here whatsoever. So these are the actions that you have available here. So I think you can definitely change statuses or anything that you need. Now, when we want to take a look at one specific entry, we can expand the section and then we can take a look at that. So here you would see more information about the actual error and of course also information about transfers and connections. First, you have date time. So when this error occurred. So it gives you, okay, this is, the time and date when this happened. Then the transfer. So you know where to go, right, and see the transfer. Then you'll see the source. This would display the source name, the one that you have. And then you have destination, which would be, in this case, Salesforce. Then the description part will show you the full error message. Of course, there are systems that give you a very long error message. There are some of them that just give you a very short one. Either way, we record here the message that we get from the destination system. In this case, I was trying to send a customer from my ERP to Salesforce. So then Salesforce actually sent back this error saying, this is the issue, you have to resolve it. So then you get more information about what needs to be done. And then this part here, which is also important, you get information about what is actually being sent to the destination. So you can double check the information, right? Because the description and the data, so these two go hand in hand, and it will allow you to troubleshoot and understand what the issue is, right? So in this case here, you see more information about what's being sent, right? And then this says, okay, this is what you're sending, and you can double check in your ERP, in your Salesforce, and see how this can be fixed. So when you get the data errors, you usually have to check that specific record and see what needs to be done, right? If it's just, let's say, a bad record, then okay, that's fine. If it's something that happens for a large number of accounts, for example, then you need to take action either in the ERP or in your, destination system. And of course here, if you click on these arrows, it will redirect you to the transfer, right? So then you can check it and see if there's anything that has to do with the mapping or any of the setup that you had done in there. Now, one thing that I want to mention about data errors is that they are being stored here, but you are not being notified. So you do not receive any kind of notifications or emails about that. Now, right now we are working on something that would allow you to be notified or to receive emails about. So for example, if you're using continue on error and you definitely want to get emails about new data errors, then we would be able to set up something for you. So right now we are working on, I would say, a permanent solution for that. So customers can receive emails whenever a new data error is stored here. But of course, it has to be set up separately for each service. So if you're using continue on error and you definitely need to be notified and receive emails about new data errors for which transfers, then reach out and then we will be able to set up something for you. Right now, what we are trying to do is to send an email to a specific recipient or many recipients, and that email would consist of a report, right? And then the report would include the error message, the transfer, and then of course the date and time when that error occurred. So that would be the basics. Of course, more can be added to it if necessary. So just a thought in case you need to report on data errors. So I think that's it. I'll go back to my presentation here. Let me see if I have any questions. No questions. So I think that has been very, very clear. Okay, let's see. So when it comes to next session, so the next one that we have is about logs and runs. So yeah, this would be Separate would be the logs that you see as part of your schedules running, or even your transfers which are manually run, and also the runs, right? They go hand in hand. So if you want to register, go ahead and do that, and then we'll cover that piece. This would be the complete schedule for our season, so to speak. So we definitely want to cover as much as possible. So if you have any feedback or you want to talk about a specific topic, just let us know. So this is our feedback form. You can definitely use it to mention any topics that you're interested in or things that you want us to go through. And then, of course, we have resources. So here we have documentation. I'm maintaining this. So then if you think that something is missing or needs to be updated, just let me know. I can definitely work on it. Then support, and you can reach out to support if you have any questions or any concerns. We have the product updates. So if you want to subscribe, then that's great. You would get a lot of content into your inbox. And we also have the product release notes. So here I usually document the release notes which are relevant for each release. So what has happened during that release, any new functionalities, any fixes, so everything around it. So they would give you more information about what we are working on, or also improving along the way, I would say. So go ahead and check those out. And of course, here I added some resources specific for this session. So I added the transfer setup, so the general part of it, continue on error, so a bit of information about it and how that works, and then data errors, and the full section, the filtering, the actions, everything you can do there. So those should be good to go. I think it's not complicated to set it up or even to use it. It's just a very small thing that you would do on your transfer. It's more complicated to actually maintain the data errors and checking them on a regular basis and making sure that things are fixed in any of the systems. So I think that's the work that has to be done. And of course, if you're using it right now, then like I said, and you need to get a report via email, let me know, and then I can set up something for that specific case. If you're not using it and if you need it, then go ahead and enable that. But of course, very important, always check the data errors that you get and make sure that you get them fixed along the way. And I think that's it for today's session. So we were very efficient. If you have any questions, any concerns about continue on error, data errors, or any other topic, just reach out. I would be more than happy to help. Thank you for listening, and I think I will see you when we have our next session. Have a good day. Bye bye.